Hi guys, it's Kath and we are here for another session of our hashtag Educators Can, and I have Nikki Leonti here with me from Start Your Own Family Daycare. Hi Nikki, how are you?
Good, I'm good.
How has your week been?
It has been very uneventful. Last week was really busy and lots of family stuff and things happening with my little man. So this week has been really cruisy, really good.
Nice,
It's been great. How about your week? How's it been going so far?
A little bit busier than last week, but I've still got some children away sick and whatnot, so still not back to fully normal. But yeah, reasonably busy as well. Kathleen's here with us. Hi Kathleen, how are you?
Hi,
I've had some really amazing parents actually this week. You know, they've rang me and actually talked to me about their children that haven't been quite right, or we've had a little bit of a vomiting bug go through us. So I just sort of spoke to all of them about really communicating well, and if they need to ring me and chat about it, not just turn up and whatnot. And they've been amazing. So it's like, yay. Good communication is paying off.
Good.
Yeah, it's a really big deal too. I mean, I've only I only work the 4 days with the 4 children, but that's still enough children to have like an illness go round and round.
Yeah.
Especially through families and whatnot as well. So Marilyn's here with us, says hi ladies. Hi Marilyn, how are you? And Sue, hi Sue.
Hello. So many lovely people on here.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. We have 2 great questions for you tonight, but if you've got any more questions, make sure you pop them in because we love questions. Let me pop up the first one. Oh. It won't let me.
Maybe.
I'm like, no, it only wants to hide it. It doesn't want to share it. Wait on show. Yay!
Hey.
Okay, so sorry. Just had a question about routines and really chatting about routines and what worked for us and what didn't. And I thought this is a really good one to be sharing because routines don't stay the same. Sometimes they need changing. And so I really wanted to talk with this about how they can change. So Nikki, what was something that really worked with your routine?
So I think, you're right about them changing, especially as the children in care get older, things start to shift. For me, what really worked was going, most of my kids were here by 9 o'clock. Most were actually much earlier, about 8:30. And then we'd have some morning tea around 9. And then we would go on our excursions. So we'd go and do, I don't know, maybe we'd go to the park or the library, things like that, or we would just head outside to play. So that was our kind of morning time, was where we did our kind of high energy stuff. While they're quite energetic, everyone's playing along nicely. And then, and that worked quite well, especially we had young, around the 2-year-old mark. They really needed to kind of do those things quite early on in the day.
Yeah.
And then 9 o'clock, we just have some kind of snack. Otherwise, it would be morning tea if we were kind of around the house a little bit later. And then after that, we would do inside activities, or we do craft generally. And then lunch would be around 12 o'clock. And so I allowed around 30 to 45 minutes or so for lunch by the time we did lunches. toileting, nappies, all of that kind of stuff, and then get them down for their rest. So then we'd have our rest time for at least an hour. Most likely it was 2 hours. And then everyone would get up.
What time did you aim for your rest time?
I'd liked them down by about 1:45. If not a little bit earlier. I guess it depended which children I had in that day, like based on their ages. But we had to be out of the house by about 2:45 for school runs. So it couldn't be too much later than that. Otherwise, those that needed the 2 hours wouldn't get it. So we usually got up around 2:15 and then had some afternoon tea, and then we'd go do school run and then have more afternoon tea again when we got back. And then it was just playing, outside in the afternoon, and all my families came by about 4:30. So
okay.
Yeah. But see, I did morning tea or a snack quite early because most of my kids were early risers. So, they were having breakfast before 6 o'clock. So, they definitely needed to eat quite quickly after coming.
Yeah. Marilyn says, mine are fairly flexible depending on children in care. Love flexible routines. So my children, most of my children are in by 7:30. So we actually have sort of a brekkie around 8:30, and which will be cereal or most of the time toast. So then they generally play until about 10. So our morning tea ends up being a bit late, but that's because we've had a big breakfast in the morning. So 10, and then we aim, and I'm a bit the same as you. I've got two 12:30 days where I aim at rest time at 12:30, and I've got 2 at 1 because those days I've got older children. So I do morning tea at 10, and then we go for a walk, and we do that walk nearly every day. Most days we do our walk up to the letterbox, collect the mail, down and around, and into the yard. So it's it just works really well having the children outside of a morning, and that means every single day, no matter what the weather is, most of the time they get a big chunk of time outside. And I really find that works really well for most children. There's not very many children that would love to be outside for a chunk of the day. Marilyn says, I'm lucky that I don't do school runs. The school bus drops school age at the end of my driveway. Me too, absolutely. So that's why I think I can afford to have like 2 days where the children go down at 1, because they don't actually get up until 3, 3:15. And then by the time you do another experience, have something set up for them when they get up, then afternoon tea and walking for Lock off the bus, it just the day goes really quickly. I have to be really careful, actually, that if I've got planned experiences, that we actually get them done, or I often...
That was definitely one of my biggest problems, is that when I first started, like very first started, I would get through all my activities really quickly. It was like them, and like I was just trying to get through them. I was a bit stressed and anxious and not wanting them to be bored for a second and all of this kind of stuff. And then I just kind of relaxed into it and really just, felt the chilled kind of vibe among the children. Like they were just really happy to just be. They didn't need to be entertained all the time. And we started really building that relationship. And then I realized that some days I'm like, gee, I didn't do any of the activities I had planned.
The planning. It's like, I've done all this planning. I really want them to do it. But then,
it kind of happened, and I'd have to really, remind myself if there was something very specific we wanted to do, I would have to have it on the bench kind of reminder for me.
Yeah. And then when we do offer those experiences, to actually remember to give the children enough time to really explore them properly and really do what they wanted to do with it, rather than like, oh, let's do this because we've got another one planned. Go, okay, no, well, this is what we're going to do. And then if the children are ready to move on, then move them on, not actually us moving them on. I think that's a really important point. Sue says, I have a question about group time during the day. What works in your routine? Do we need group time for the 3 and under? I do, just because it works really well with my children. And I actually do it. I used to do a morning group time. Sometimes we still do, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just do a little bit of yoga and stretching and whatnot instead. But I do a group time most days at the end of lunch. So the children finish their lunch, they move on to books, they have a 15 to 20 minute sit where they wait for the other children to finish their lunches, and then I sit with them and we do songs that we've been learning. I might read a book if they ask to read a book. It's quite informal, but it's definitely where I will most days read at least one book, sing at least 3 songs, and then we do like a relax, who needs a snuggle before they go to bed, what are you going to take to bed with you, the sort of that quiet chatting and snuggling and talking and getting ready for bed. And then we grab, like, off we go, and we have either our quiet time or our sleep time, depending on what the children do. So that's a really important transition for me from in food, book time, quiet. I can't say quiet time because my group times are usually really, really loud. But if they've got any energy left over, then that's the time to get it out. Like, let's do something really, really super fun. Lots of jumping, lots of activity. But then the last 2 songs, maybe a book about bed, about rest, about recognizing rest, just sort of coming down and having it then. So I would actually say that my group time is an important part of my day. I really like it.
And I think, like, if you
children, then don't do it. Like,
and I think there's some ways that, you know, for me, I always had, when I first started, my youngest was really, like, he was only 1, yet my eldest, like, he was, you know, around 4, maybe 3, I don't know, around that age. And so he loved group time and my youngest didn't. So my youngest would just be happy going and playing with the trains or something like that. And that worked really well. And so I had some who were 18 months, 2, and then 3. And that they loved it. Like, they loved listening to books. We had puppets, you know, we do all that kind of stuff. But I actually did it before lunch. I found that, you know, I would like to get them all in, and then we would do group time straight up. And then we'd do a transition. And this was from my kindy teaching days. We do a transition to the toilet, or like, for everyone to go and wash their hands, and then they'd go to the table. So that was kind of like something that I did, but I always found that quite helpful. So finding when it fits in with your day as well. So if you're finding that you're doing group time and it just does not work, there are so many options. Change the time of it. Do it after rest time. Do it straight up in the morning. Do it, you know, with just a couple of the kids, not all 4 of them. You know, so there's lots of things that you can do, like, to try and make it work for you, because there are going to be some children that would love to sit there and, you know, listen to a story or sing some songs or things like that. So, you know, try a few things, you know, if it's not working how you've got it right now. So there's no, like, you must do it like this. I find puppets really good for kids who don't want to sit there at group time. Yeah, like the finger puppets, or you can buy, where did I see them? Kmart have a series of puppets at the moment. They're like, they're kind of like the Sesame Street type puppets. Like, they're people puppets, I guess. And so you can do like emotions or tell stories. And I always used a puppet as like a, connector. So for children who are just starting with me, or if we were kind of, leading into a new activity or something and children were feeling a bit nervous about it, I would always do it through the puppet. That caught their attention, and it definitely made it a little bit more exciting. So, telling a story as the puppet, things like that. So
chatting about emotions through the puppets. That's one of them. That's my children are into the wooden spoon. They've got like all the different animals in the spoon on the back of the wooden spoons that they use as puppets. They're quite into that. They're quite into that at the moment. But then they might not be interested in that next week. So introduce something different, but try and make your group time interesting and fun, and that's so they'll want to do it with you. But if you've got one child that doesn't want to do it, then they don't do it. Offer them something else. Like it doesn't have to be a fuss time where everyone has to sit. If you have two children that are really interested in doing a group time or having a little play with the puppets with you or whatever, do that with them, and the other children will see it. And if they're interested, they'll come. If they're not, they won't. We've got Ali says, we generally have group time after morning tea, about 9:30, 10, then again 2-ish before afternoon tea and school pickup, songs, stories, dancing to songs. Absolutely. Yeah, that's cool. And Sue says, sounds a much better time than before lunch. Whatever works for you is an experiment. And as your children get older, they'll probably, they might be really used to you doing it at a certain time, so they'll expect it and they'll like it then. But then if it doesn't work, then because your children have changed ages or got that little bit older, then change it and move it. Ali says, my children are 3 and under. Yeah, which, can just mean rolling on the floor. Like it doesn't, a group time doesn't have to be something specific. It can just be doing lots of movement with them. Something that they'll enjoy. Ali says, I use special cushions or mats for my children to sit on. So when it's group time, they get their mat and come and sit down. Absolutely. Love that. So they've got that routine. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's super. And if you've got more routine tips that really work for you, then share them below so other educators can read them, because that's what we're all looking for, tips from each other that really work. Okay, Nikki, we have our next question. And I was asked a question this week about, how to support sleeping transitions. So I was asked about when would I move a certain little boy from a cot to a bed. And I thought this is a great question just to have a chat about and how to support sleeping transitions and development. So, Nikki, were all your children in cots?
No, only besides my own son, though I had one child that was in a porta cot. The rest were all on mats, and that worked really well. So the one that was in a porta cot, him and his brother came on a Saturday, so it was only the two of them plus mine. And so I had him set up in a bedroom, whereas during the week when I had the other children, they were all on mats. So we all just, I cleared the lounge room and all the mats would just go down in the lounge room because everyone rested at the same time. So that really worked for us. But I guess looking back, that boy was stayed in the porta cot longer than I would have liked, purely because he needed to be in that room because he needed to sleep at a different time to everyone else. So he was still having 2 sleeps, and I didn't want him in a room without being in a porta cot. So that was more of a safety thing, by keeping him in the porta cot there. So if he was having the same rest time as the other children, then he would have just been on a mat with them. But he wasn't yet. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got in my sleeping room, I've got one wooden cot and I've got two porta cots, and then I've got five sleeping mats, I think. And so what I've been trying to do is, if the children are in cots at home, I try and have them still in a cot in the sleeping room. But then when they're transitioning, at the same time as they're transitioning off their cots into beds at home, that's when I try and transition them also onto sleeping mats in care, just for that continuity, and because that's, parents are discussing it then and they're learning about it then, and to sort of move as well. I always discuss it with parents first before I move them from a cot onto a sleeping mat. I think that's super important to remember to do.
You don't want the parents to be anxious during the day thinking, oh my goodness, and especially parents always think that they aren't ready generally to go on a mat, even though you know they probably are. But you don't want parents stressing all day thinking, oh my goodness, you've put him on a mat, and they don't want that. Then it's just not going to work.
No, it needs to be really positive. But in another token, I had one little girl who's just toilet trained really, really early, and she was dry through the night as well. And mum and dad said to me, you know, what do we do with her through the night? I said, well, if you're going to not have a nappy on her through the night, you need to move her out of a cot. Like, you can't leave her in the cot when you want her getting up and toileting through the night. So that was another discussion that they hadn't even thought of. So it's just really important to have really clear discussions around cots and sleeping mats and routine.
Absolutely.
Of toileting as well. It all just comes out, doesn't it? Kelly says, I just ask the parent what they are doing at home and go with that. I have a variety of options that suit: a bed, a porta cot, and a daycare stretch beds. Yeah, lovely. Okay. And Marilyn says, same as you, Kath and Kelly, communication with the families and follow their routine. Absolutely. And it is about the communication, because if you're not communicating well with those parents, then you won't know when they move their child from the cot to the bed. And one of my little boys has been moved from a cot to a bed. Probably he moved about 2 weeks ago, but he still keeps asking here to go in the cot. And I sort of talked to Mum, and I was like, do you mind? That's what he wants to do. And she said, no, give him choice, let him choose. And so I'm super happy to give them. I like to give him choice, but I also, as Nikki said, really like the parents to be comfortable about where they're sleeping and know where they're sleeping.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's important. So has anyone got any more questions? Because that's us for tonight. That's our questions. Love getting questions through.
Really good questions, actually. Like, I think, you know, we don't get to see what other people are doing, and that's why we love these kind of conversations and people bring in their questions, because we can't go behind the scenes of what other people are doing in their family daycare. So that's
no, not easily.
Share. I wouldn't know what several different, you know, educators are doing. And especially when it comes to routines and things like that, you know, sometimes it's just a little change that can really make a huge difference in your entire day. And I think one question I get a lot from people who are starting their family daycare is always about sleeping mats. Like, am I meant to have cots, you know, or should there be mats, and all this kind of thing. So one tip I would give for those who are like just kind of in those early stages is, don't go and buy everything until you know what ages of kids you have got coming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because that's going to be your big determining factor.
Yeah, it really is. And also, you know, making sure that anything that you purchase does meet the Australian standards and that you've actually got the documentation for it. Don't buy cots or sleeping mats or any of that sort of stuff unless you've actually got that documentation in your hand.
Yeah.
too. I think that's something that that new educators can be caught out a little bit on as well.
Yeah. Cool. This has been fun.
Nice. Yeah, this is great. Great. So we have no more questions.
All right. Well,
so we will finish
for next week.
Yes, we need some questions for next week. Kelly says exactly. It's a big question I ask when they come for an interview, and I think I'd have to buy another Porticott if I took on this child. Do I want to do that? Where would I put it, and where would it work? Absolutely. Yeah. Looking at the whole structure of what a new child will need is a very big deal to take on a new child, and it's definitely one of the considerations, and it's a pretty big consideration, is sleeping and sleeping routines and where they're going to sleep and where they'll fit with the other children in their routine of sleeping as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for all the questions tonight. And all the discussion. That's fabulous.
That's really good.
Yeah. So pop your questions below. We'll send them through either to Nikki or I in a PM. We will be back next week on Nikki's page. And have a beautiful week. Thank you so much, Nikki, for joining us. And
thanks for having me. We'll see you next week.
We will. Bye, guys.
Bye.